Do you ever think about how scary it must have been to be one of the first people to discover the dead body of someone who has gone missing? The idea of stumbling across the remains of a missing person is certainly enough to disturb anyone. But when that missing person was your own family member, things would be much worse. Welcome back, guys, to the channel. Today we're going to be sharing yet another terrifying true horror story from Reddit. So let's get into it. For my entire life, I've lived in the suburbs. I grew up there, bought a house there, raised a family there. You could say I'm your typical My street is fairly normal. It's a cul-de-sac, so it's pretty quiet. There are nice houses and gardens, and not much ever happens here. We just all live our lives and mind our own business. My next-door neighbor is an older gentleman who lives alone. He's never had any kids, and he rarely entertains guests. Over the years, I've only ever seen 2 other people visit him. One is his brother, who comes around every few months for a short stay. And the other is a woman who comes around once a week. I assume this woman is his caretaker or something like that because she helps him do his yard work and takes care of his pool. There was a third person who used to visit regularly, but I haven't seen him in a long time. His name is Rick. And he used to come over and hang out with my neighbor quite often. Rick was a drifter type, always traveling, always looking for adventure. The kind of guy who would go backpacking through Europe for months at a time without telling anyone where he was going or when he would be back. I'd see him come and go from my neighbor's house several times throughout the year. My neighbor always seemed pretty excited when he saw Rick coming, and they'd invite me over to join them for dinner sometimes. But after Rick would leave again, my neighbor would always seem really down afterwards. I should also mention that my neighbor can be a little strange. He's a bit of a hoarder, and his yard is filled with all kinds of random junk. There's old car parts, tires, tools, appliances, lawn ornaments, all kinds of stuff. I've joked with him before that he should open a junkyard instead of living in a house. He just laughs it off. Though, one day, I was outside working on my yard when my neighbor came out his front door. He was holding a photocopied sheet of paper and he looked visibly shaken. I asked him if everything was all right, and he told me that he just got a call from the police. They wanted to ask him some questions about his friend, Rick, who had disappeared over a month ago. He said that the police were now considering Rick's disappearance suspicious, and they wanted to know what he knew about Rick's activities. I didn't think much of it at the time. I mean, it's not like it was unusual for Rick to disappear for weeks or months at a time. He'd always show up eventually, so I figured the police would probably find him soon enough. A couple weeks later, I was taking out the trash one evening when I noticed my neighbor's front door was open. He was nowhere to be seen, but I could hear some movement in the house. I couldn't make out what it was, but it sounded like voices and footsteps. Just as I was about to call out and ask if everything was okay, I saw the front door close and lock itself. I thought it was odd that he would leave his door unlocked, but I didn't think much more of it. The next day, I was home alone. My wife was away on a business trip, and my kids were at school. It was about 3 p.m., and I was in the kitchen making myself a sandwich when I heard some commotion outside. I went to the window to look out, and I saw a group of men in uniforms rummaging through my neighbor's yard. It didn't take me long to realize these were the same men who had been at his house the day before. They were searching everywhere, in the bushes, behind the shed, even in the pool. They even brought out one of those big yellow dumpsters and started digging through my neighbor's pile of junk. As I watched, completely dumbfounded, one of the men pulled something out of the pile, and I saw him make a face that made my blood run cold. When the man came back with what he had found, I realized why he had that look on his face. He was holding a human skull. The officers quickly closed off the area and brought out several evidence markers and a body bag. They were very tight-lipped about what was going on, but I could see by their expressions that whatever it wasn't good. As the hours passed and more police showed up, it became clear that whatever had been found in the yard was important. At one point, I saw my neighbor being led out of the house in handcuffs. He wasn't saying anything, but I could tell he was crying. Finally, after what felt like hours, the police came to my door and told me I needed to come with them to the station to answer some questions. When they told me it was about my neighbor, I knew something was seriously wrong. At the station, the police were very tight. All they would tell me was that they had arrested my neighbor in connection with an ongoing death investigation. They asked me if I knew anything that might be helpful to the investigation, but the truth is I didn't. I hadn't actually spoken to my neighbor in quite a while. He kept to himself mostly, and I didn't have much occasion to talk to him. Besides, I had no reason to suspect anything was wrong. After another hour or so of questioning, they let me go. What happened next made national news. My neighbor's name was Charles. He had been a recluse since the death of his wife 10 years prior. In the months following his arrest, it was revealed that he had been secretly burying bodies in his backyard. He had done this on multiple occasions, but he had not been caught until now. What had been discovered in my neighbor's yard was the skull and remains of his longtime friend, Rick. After Rick failed to return from one of his adventures, Charles had reported him missing, but only after waiting 2 weeks. He told the police he had last seen Rick 6 weeks earlier and had no idea what had happened to him. The police suspected foul play immediately and began investigating Charles. They had been watching him for some time, but they had not gathered enough evidence to make an arrest until now. Rick's remains had been found in a shallow grave, along with several personal items that had belonged to him. Dental records confirmed the remains were Rick's. It was later revealed that Charles had killed Rick during an argument over money. Charles had buried Rick in his yard, but it had taken some time for the body to be discovered. Charles was charged with second-degree murder and pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison. This is where things get a little weird, though. During Charles's trial, it was revealed that he had killed at least 3 other people in the past, though their bodies had never been found. Charles had been a suspect in several other missing persons cases, but he was never able to be charged because there was no evidence. With the discovery of Rick's remains, however, the police were able to connect Charles to the other murders. It was also revealed that Charles had been visited by a number of other drifters over the years. Just like Rick, he had met many of these men through newspaper ads. He had taken out offering money for companionship. He would invite them over to his house for a few days, and then, well, you can imagine what happened next. All this time, I had been living next door to a serial killer, and I had no idea. To this day, I still wonder how many people my neighbor murdered. So that was the story shared by you/Star. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? What kind of monster would do such horrible things to other people? And why do you think he did it? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this true horror story, make sure to check out another video. Also, if you want to share your story with us, please follow the instructions provided. Until next time, sleep tight and don't let the bedbugs bite.